Good morning, everyone. Bright and early on a December day, the snow is falling. My name's Dan Van Abbs. I'm the outgoing chair of the New Jersey Clean Water Council. Jim Cosgrove is cringing because he's the incoming chair of the Clean Water Council. I'd like to welcome you to our 2015 public hearing, which has the topic of moving beyond the Barnegat Bay watershed, using partnerships to improve water quality in New Jersey, which is a mouthful. The purpose of this hearing is to do two things. One is to provide some information to all of the attendees, and so we have speakers that we're very pleased to have with us this morning. I will be announcing them as we go along, but Commissioner Martin, of course, is the first of those. Let me give you a sense of the agenda here. We will be starting off with our speakers. So our keynote is, of course, Commissioner Martin. Patricia Inchilito from the DEP will be talking about the Barnegat Bay program. And then Jennifer Adkins from the Partnership for the Delaware Estuary will be talking about the partnership programs that they have. We will have questions and answers for I imagine the commissioner will have to scoot as soon as he is done with his talk. So if he has time, we'll do questions for him immediately after his talk. We will then take questions for the other two speakers after both of them have spoken, and then we'll take a break, which will be somewhere in the neighborhood of 10:45, but I make no absolute guarantees as to that. After that, we will be getting into public testimony, and I'll go through in more detail the public testimony component of this. I'd like to recognize our Clean Water Council members. The Clean Water Council membership is divided into two sets of people. On one hand, we have people who are representative of various organizations and who are representatives of the general public. And these folks are listed on the left-hand side of the screen here with George Bakun, Gina Berg, Robert Breslin, James Cosgrove, Russell Fenari, Amy Goldsmith, Pamela Goodwin, Anthony McCracken, Lou Neely, Chris Sturm, and myself. And then we have, on the other side of the screen, the people who represent various state agencies. And this is by law. The Clean Water Council was established with state agency representation. And so we have Ferdows Ali from the Department of Agriculture, Stan Cash, who also serves as the secretary of the council, as our liaison from DEP. We have a liaison from the Water Supply Advisory Council, which is a state agency, but the person who is representing is not a state agency person. He's a council member, Norm Nelson. Mariana Holden from the Board of Public Utilities, Jim Requay from the Department of Community Affairs, Jessica Sanchez from the Delaware River Basin Commission, and Anthony Valenti from the Department of Labor. So this group of people over here are all of the council members who were able to attend today, and I'd like to thank them for their service. I have had the opportunity over the last 6 years to be second vice chair, first vice chair, and chair, and now I'm going to fall off the officer slate as of January, and the roles will be taken up by Jim Cosgrove will be chair, Jessica Sanchez will be first vice chair, and we will be electing a second vice chair. We haven't decided whether we're going to choose straws, whoever gets the short straw, or whatever the method will be, but there will be a new second vice chair. And I would like to thank you very much for the service that you've given over the time that I've been an officer, and I look forward to continuing my service because I'm not going off the council. I'm simply going off the role as chair. Okay, so The commissioner will be speaking as soon as he comes in. I'd like to talk a little bit about the genesis of this public hearing and where it came from. The department has been working for several years now with a strong focus on the Barnegat Bay as part of the overall coastal initiative. I'm not going to steal the commissioner's thunder with regard to speaking about this, much less Trish's role either. So I'm not going to get into details in terms of the Barnegat Bay program. The question to the Clean Water Council was, all right, interesting things have been done in the Barnegat Bay area, and so how can the department do some of that similar kind of work elsewhere in the state, working in partnership with people who are not of the Department of Environmental Protection? And so that's the reason for this hearing today, is to get testimony on the whole question of how can DEP work with others, how can others work with DEP to advance the cause of clean water in the state of New Jersey in a way that gets us beyond boundaries, that gets us beyond standard ways of operating, that gets us beyond our normal process where DEP regulates and other people react, essentially. So that's really what we're trying to deal with today. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you a person who obviously doesn't need to be introduced to you, and that is the Commissioner of the Department of Environmental Protection, Bob Martin. I saw him speak yesterday morning up in Newark at the Jersey Waterworks Conference. Bob Martin has been a tremendous supporter of the Clean Water Council over the course of his time here in his role as Commissioner. And we have always had the opportunity to meet with him, to hear from him, to have his time. He has dedicated quite a bit of staff time, management time, and his own time to interacting with Clean Water Council, and we really respect that. That has been a tremendous benefit to us as a council. So with no further ado, Commissioner Martin, join us.
Morning, everyone. How we doing?
Good morning.
Good to see everybody. Okay, I want to put my coffee over here. Don't lose it. Well, thank you. Thank you, Dan, and thank you for your leadership, and thanks to the council. On behalf of the governor, I'm very, very proud to be here yet again with all of you, and I see a lot of familiar faces from yesterday, which is great. Been a great group to work with overall. I'm going to talk through several things this morning, but I first want to thank you, for the work that you've done over the years. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I just realized the other day we're coming up on 6 years in this job, which I didn't think I'd be here for 6 years, but am, and I still love my job and still love what I do. And you guys have been great to work with, so it's been very helpful to me. And again, the Clean Water Council, all of you have provided a great service to the state, and all of you know that I don't spend a lot of time with a lot of the other councils and boards. There's 50 to 60 to 70 different boards and councils and commissions associated with DEP. And besides not having that time available, I realize the ones that spend the time doing real research, real work, and coming back with real solid recommendations and helping us set policy in the state of New Jersey. Your leadership in this area has been, immense, and I really appreciate that. There's plenty of people that are out there that are very glad to give us a lot of rhetoric and have talking points on stuff. There's very few that come forward with the kind of research and thought leadership that we need. With the hearings that you do and the expertise you all bring very directly yourself to us. So I want to thank you for that. And I want to talk a little bit about what we've done over the last 6 years and the policy directions that have been set. Most of that in the water area with some significant influence from this group on how we've shaped that public policy. And that's extremely important. Some of these boards and councils that we put in place provide us small bits and pieces. You've provided some solid input, direction overall on public policy making that we've done in our water programs in the state of New Jersey. In 2010 and 11, the council had public hearings focused on aging infrastructure, which focused on asset management. All of you know that I strongly support asset management and long-term capital investments in water infrastructure of the state. You know, as I mentioned yesterday in my speech to the New Jersey Waterworks Urban Water Conference, which Dan mentioned, you know, we talked about over the next 20 years, the total water infrastructure and infrastructure investments that are needed is we've estimated is $45 billion. $37 billion of that in wastewater, stormwater, and CSO, and another $8 billion in drinking water infrastructure that's required. This is an issue that has drawn significant attention in this state and should, and we continue to talk about that. And yesterday I also talked about, you know, the recent water main breaks, you know, in Hoboken, which just emphasized, you know, one of those pipes was put in back in 1923, which emphasized that's obviously infrastructure that needs to be replaced and updated over a long period of time. So to address aging infrastructure, we need to talk about both asset management and long-term investments. We have to stop thinking about short-term investments, but make sure we're looking at long-term investments overall. We need to look at the investment horizon over a 30-year period, not over a 2 or 3 year period. Right now we're spending millions and millions of dollars on emergency fixes with breaks, emergency breaks, and plants that have, whether they're wastewater treatment plants or the water supply that have infrastructure that is in need of repair. An asset management plan and long-term capital investments are necessary to ensure reliable infrastructure for the years and decades ahead. In the following year, in 2012, the Council addressed infrastructure resiliency in the aftermath of Superstorm Sandy. Superstorm Sandy revealed the extent of our vulnerabilities. We had over $2.6 billion worth of infrastructure, water infrastructure damage in the state caused by that storm. Your input helped DEP refine our focus on 4 key areas that we needed to build resiliency. Those areas we focused on were emergency response preparedness and planning, floodproofing, auxiliary power, and asset management. By focusing on these areas, we are continuing to build resiliency against future storms. In 2013, we met to discuss the greening of New Jersey's water infrastructure. Your recommendations help support the green infrastructure part of our stormwater management program. The department provides improved financing grants of up to 50% for green infrastructure in CSO areas. The program is helping us work with local community groups to make sure these programs are successful. These steps are definitely making it a significant advantage in improving the green infrastructure movement in the state of New Jersey. In 2014, we started focusing on solving the CSO problem in the state of New Jersey. The council helped facilitate a comprehensive integrated approach, which we are developing to address the state's 213 CSOs that still remain that need to be removed. And that's been a primary goal of this administration, to put ourselves on a path of removing all 213 of those CSOs. CSO permits went into effect in July. Again, the permits will require long-term control plans. Because we are conscious of the cost, again, we are looking at long-term investments in CSOs to solve this problem. We want communities and wastewater treatment plants and facilities to invest over a 30-year period to make sure those CSOs go away, and again, the infrastructure is built around it. I thank you for your advice and counsel on making CSOs a key priority for this administration. And again, I want to thank you all for over the last few years, the work we've done in shaping where we've gone on that front. Now let's focus on this year. Continuing to build on the momentum that we had over the past 6 years, we had a conversation in July and began our discussion. And at that discussion, we talked about the opportunity to review recommendations and steps of how we protect and manage water around the state. I put forward the Governor's Barnegat Bay Plan up for discussion in July. I asked you all to think about how can we use the Barnegat Bay Plan, or the model we used there and the work we did there, for all other initiatives around the state concerning water bodies and areas around the state dealing with waters. For those of you who are not familiar with the 10-point plan, in 2010, the governor issued a 10-point plan to address and restore the health of Barnegat Bay. Highlights of the past 5 years include the closure of Oyster Creek, which is scheduled for 2019, which is 10 years ahead of time of their original plan, the strictest in the nation fertilizer laws, the acquiring of over 3,700 acres of open space in that watershed, significant public outreach and education, with the cornerstone being the Barnegat Bay Blitz, working with universities to fill in research gaps so we get a full picture of the health of Barnegat Bay, establishing a comprehensive water monitoring network, and establishing conservation zones to protect sensitive areas in Barnegat Bay. All those things have been done over the past 5 years, and we're very proud of that record and the work we've done there. We've made great strides in efforts to gather information and create scientific data, solid data to work from for the future to make decisions. From the Barnegat Bay work we've done, we've come up with 3 key lessons learned. First, we needed to fill in the data gaps was extremely important, and we learned that. 2, we must build a strong network of partners to work with us. And 3, we need communication and education must be a part of whatever we do going forward in any of the water programs when we look across the state. Let me take each one of these and talk for a bit. Let's begin talking about the research gaps. DEP's Office of Science worked with several partners to identify research gaps to fill in our knowledge of Barnegat Bay. Partners included the Science Advisory Board, state universities, USGS, EPA, and the Barnegat Bay Partnership. We then funded 11 projects to universities to address these research gaps. Of the various universities, we worked with 4 in-state universities that played key roles: Rutgers, Monmouth, Rider, and Montclair State University. Research projects range from studying estuaries and wetlands, evaluating voter impacts on the environmentally sensitive areas of the bay, and assessing various species of fish, crabs, clams, and other organisms of Barnegat Bay. In early November, DEP hosted a symposium on the review and discussion of the findings of the comprehensive 3-year studies, these scientific studies that we did. It was an opportunity for the public to hear the results of the studies, which will guide our policy making going forward. Again, another example of us filling in the research gaps was the comprehensive water monitoring network. Action 7 of the governor's 10-point plan focused on assessing water quality impairments in Barnegat Bay. DEP solicited help from 17 partner organizations to help us build a model for these standards. These included everyone from EPA to the Barnegat Bay Partnership, municipalities, counties, utility authorities, schools and universities like Monmouth University and MATES, and groups such as Reclaim the Bay, and several marinas participated with that. Again, an overall collaborative effort to work with us to provide us the data we needed to move forward. We also used 5 different laboratories in collaboration with that work, so we're able to analyze all that data to make it work together. Within the first 6 months, 75,000 field measurements were collected. The results of all that testing and analysis is what we have the most, we have the most comprehensive picture ever of Barnegat Bay and the water quality within Barnegat Bay. And because we rely on science, data, facts, and policy decisions, we're able to make good decisions in the future. The basis since day one in this job, I've always said, is that we'll always make decisions based on the science. It's not about ideology, it's not about politics. And that's why this group is important to provide us that science. And the work we do is based on science and always will be. Of course, we have to be realistic about our approach. We need to recognize that resources become extremely limited in the state, and it always is and always will be. This is why we're turning to partners for various backgrounds to help us further with our efforts to protect the environment. The second lesson we learned, that was very important, was building networks of partners. In addition to partnering with academics, towns, and nonprofits, DEP turned to companies and organizations for the Barnegat Bay Blitz. An educational component of the Governor's Barnegat Bay Plan, the Blitz started in 2011 and reached all sectors of the 37 towns within the watershed. DEP has hosted 6 successful Barnegat Bay Blitzes. During that time, more than 22,000 volunteers have stepped up and worked with us. Nearly 2,500 cubic yards of trash and recyclables were cleaned up. 28 partners, both companies and organizations, worked with us on that. And all 37 municipalities participated in one way or another, most of them extensively, with a lot of their resources out with us all day long and all over the weekends when we were not there. We could not have done this without willing partners participating with us and investing their time and their resources. Again, we need those resources to make things happen. The third lesson learned for the Barnegat Bay Plan is the need for communication and education. Through constant communication, we're able to enlist the public to be our eyes and ears in the watershed. These include everyone from local government agencies, utility authorities, water purveyors, to academics, private companies, and local residences. Our recent example of an important communication and education effort was the Barnegat Bay Bulkhead Blitz. The pilot program was designed to educate residents with docks and bulkheads how to keep sea nettles from laying polyps on hard surfaces. By teaching residents how to simply scrub and power wash the polyps, residents were able to reduce the population of these sea nettles. Our volunteers blasted away numerous sea nettle polyps off of hard surfaces around Barnegat Bay. We expect this will reduce significantly the number of sea polyp population this year, and we'll continue to do that in the future. Let me just go overall to partnerships. We need partnerships like the one with you, with this organization, and with all organizations. They need to be part of our solution. We need your expertise. We need others' expertise to make things work. We need perspectives from the outside. We don't have all the answers inside DEP. We need expertise from outside. We need new innovative thinking added to our team of experts and significant expertise within DEP. Since day one, as commissioner, I've emphasized partnerships. We want to take advantage of resources that are in the state of New Jersey, take advantage of things better, faster ways of improving the quality of life in the state of New Jersey. And DEP needs to know that resources are available in state so we can work with them. We need to understand who they are and how they can help us and how we can leverage those resources going forward. Even with a department that has 2,800 people, as DEP does, that even if we had 10,000 people, 20,000, it's still not enough. We need to leverage organizations all across this state. We work well with a lot of great partnerships already in this state, and a lot of organizations and corporations who've stepped up to work with us, and that's been great. But again, we need to expand that network. We recently expanded our community collaborative initiative as well, working with teams and partners in Camden, Perth Amboy, and here in Trenton. We are working to resolve environmental challenges in these towns and to create new opportunities, such as developing abandoned and unutilized sites, improving local water quality, and to reduce local flooding. DEP works with a whole host of universities around the state as well. We work closely with state universities such as Montclair State, Ramapo, Keene, Stockton, Rutgers, Rowan University, the College of New Jersey. We work with them in so many different ways, and it's been exceptional. Those relationships with universities has allowed us to bring interns, both graduate and undergraduate interns, into our programs to build the next leaders of the future, both in DP and outside, both in private industry and with other organizations. That expertise has cross-pollinated ideas of current research areas that these universities are working on. It also allows us to direct research projects to those universities so we know what their capabilities are and how to work with them better going forward. Recently, about 3 weeks ago, I took my executive team and my senior team up to Montclair State University. We spent a half a day with them, with about 20 different professors in their Department of Environmental Sciences and Biology. And we talked about what we're doing from our side, what our priorities are from DEP. They brought their professors and experts where they're doing new research, breakthrough research, everything from cleaning up contaminated sites to how do you sort out how dealing with water quality issues, air emissions, other and broader environmental issues across the board. It was an incredible discussion because it allowed us to start matching up their research, their leading research, with our expertise with people with feet on the ground who know the day-to-day, who have to deal with the challenges. That marrying up, we realize is going to pay dividends in the future, and we're looking to work with all the other universities in the state in that same way. So where does the council come in? As I talked about in July, I want to know how we can leverage the partnerships to other watersheds and other water initiatives around the state. I want to hear from you how we can work in collaboration with other partnerships to reach our goals of cleaner water across the state. I want to understand, how do we replicate the lessons learned from Barnegat Bay and improve on them? So take what we've already done and see if there's better ways we can do that. We believe there's a lot of successes there, but we know there's other things we can always improve on. We also want to know where we can build better partnerships and how we can leverage other partnerships. What techniques or models do you know and what you can bring to the table? What resources has the state not tapped into in these areas? What options can we use in our planning processes? The council is made up of some of the best and the brightest in the state and the work that we're doing in the water area. You are our experts. We'd like you to help us think through how we can bring other resources and other expertise to the table, working and going forward. And leveraging that as to where do we want to start focusing those efforts where we already know there are resources in certain watersheds or certain areas of water initiatives across the state. In conclusion, I ask you for your help, again, to help us focus on this topic and use your expertise to bring that to the table. I thank you again for your leadership and the work that you've done. It's been exceptional work. As I mentioned in my discussion of the history here, your leadership has been extremely important. I appreciate it, the state of New Jersey appreciates it, and we look forward to your report. Thank you very much.